The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
The Toronto Blue Jays season has come to an end. It has come to a merciful end. Thank you to the calendar for turning to October so that we no longer have to watch 2025 Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Today, CEO/President Mark Shapiro spoke to the media along with General Manager Ross Atkins. A couple little tidbits coming out of that press conference. One, they're going to try and re-sign both Vladdy and Bo. 100%, you need to give Vladdy whatever he wants. He's proven time and time again that he's a great hitter. He's a great for the city. He's a great baseball player. He's an all-star. You can't really ask more out of Vlad. He's performed every single time out there that you needed him to perform. After a slow start, turn it into one of the best seasons we've seen recently from a Blue Jay. Vladdy, re-signed him. Bo, on the other hand, we're a little wary on a season that was completely derailed by injuries. Bo wasn't there for most of the year, so we're not really unsure about Bo, but the management team here says they are trying to re-sign them both. They say it's going to be difficult, but the attempt is get them both under contract this offseason. That's, I think, an important note out of the press conference. Two, there are a bunch of changes to the coaching staff, mainly Don Mattingly, who was the offensive coordinator for the Toronto Blue Jays this season. And they tried to make this offensive coordinator role that, you usually have in like football where they have offensive and defensive coordinators. And you know what? Didn't work. They let go of him as the offensive coordinator, but are moving him to the bench coach. And they're not calling it like he failed at his job as offensive coordinator. It's supposed to be like an upgrade that Don Mattingly gets to be the bench coach now. But like, it's because he failed. It's because he sucked at the offensive coordinator role, and they sucked at offense for most of the season, for all of the season. And I don't think that's what Don Mattingly is good at. So I hope he gets a better run as bench coach. So he's probably much more fitted for that. And thirdly is what we're going to break down here, and that is a couple minutes of Mark Shapiro, one, lying through his teeth, two, excusing an awful team, and three, justifying Ross Atkins' job. So we're going to go through this little sequence of question and answer from Mark Shapiro and the media that was there, and I'll hop in and we'll talk this through. So here we go. First clip from Mark Shapiro.
How do you evaluate the front office and what they could have done better to avoid this?
Well, I think the evaluation is, always looking at the year for sure, and then looking at the years prior as well. Some of what happened this year was injuries. Injuries are tough to forecast and tough to overcome. Usually, if you don't overcome them, it's two things. One, it's lack of having quality depth and quality alternatives. In some cases, it's almost impossible to overcome, if it's to a player that you expect to contribute in an extremely meaningful way, to be a core part of what contributes. But I think that's probably the key thing, is that we need to have better depth. Wasn't just injuries, and clearly we need to be more thoughtful about, the way we're producing runs and our bullpen in particular this past year.
Right there, when I mentioned before the clip where I said Mark Shapiro's lying through his teeth, the injury situation. Factually, if we look at just the numbers and Blue Jays front office, all you do is look at numbers. To say that injuries played a large part in derailing this season is just not true. Because out of all of the major league teams, all 30 of them, the Blue Jays had the fewest man games missed due to injury. The fewest out of any team in the entire league. I get hey, Bo was out for most of the year. That hurts. Cool. What else? If you have the fewest man games missed, starting with injuries derailing the season as your excuse for what didn't happen, you can't start there when it's just not true. It's all comes down to the roster construction. And yeah, okay, depth. Depth is something that you didn't do. That's your job. Your job, Mark Shapiro, is to build the depth. Well, you and Ross Atkins. I should say Ross Atkins, your job is to build the depth. But the two of you are the same person at this point because Shapiro's never going to fire Atkins. There's been a million times he could have, and he's never going to do it. They are going down together with this sinking ship. So I just don't like that. I just don't like you start with something that's not true. And yes, the depth should have been better, and that's your responsibility. You did not build enough organizational depth to fill in the pieces that were underperforming because you built a bad roster. Let's continue.
And looking at your front office, will there be any changes into the front office, and why or why not?
Well, I mean, my responsibility is not the entire front office, but, I think obviously Ross is, my main concern, and there won't be a change with Ross. The reason for that is, the process that I went through to consider whether or not there would be a change with his role was one of both considering alternatives and looking at the work that's been done. Not going to avoid that this year, was a disappointment. This year was a significant setback. It's not work that we're proud of, not work that he's proud of, not work that I'm proud of. Ross needs to be better. I need to be better. Our entire baseball operations need to be better. But I also think about the fact that we played in the playoffs 3 of the past 5 years, that 4 of the past 5 we played meaningful games through September, that each of the past 4 we left spring training objectively with a chance to be a contending team and playoff team. And to me, that's not grounds to make a change. If I felt there was a better alternative to run our baseball operation, I'd make that change.
Let's start with what Mark Shapiro said at the end there, and then let's get back to that playoff thing, which is one of the weirdest things Mark Shapiro's ever said. He said if there was a better candidate out there, he would have made the change. But we've reached the point where anything different is better because what currently is not successful. So I don't know if how is that a defense of what you've been doing? If what you've been doing is not successful, then any change in any direction should be better. That there should have been enough evidence here that you should make a change. And the playoff thing leads into that because Mark Shapiro says there, 3 of the last 5 years we've been in the playoffs. And 4 of the last 5 we've been playing meaningful games in September. That's such a misnomer and a misdirection of language because, yeah, sure, you've made the playoffs 3 of the last 5 years, but in each of those years, you were swept. You were not competitive in the playoffs. You might as well have not made it. It doesn't matter that you were in the playoffs 3 of 5 years if you didn't win a single game in any of those series. You got walloped every single time. And he mentions coming out of spring training as a legitimate contender. That means nothing. It means absolutely nothing to be a contender in April and even in March. Being a contender in March doesn't mean anything because the games don't count. No baseball game is won on paper. It's just word salad to misdirect this fan base to just say anything and act like he's saying something and defending this franchise. Let's continue.
This is the second straight year where you've sat down here in front of us and said Ross needs to be better. So that's after his 8th season and his 9th season running the baseball operations. I guess how many times are you comfortable?
Well, I'm never not going to say we need to be better. I think if you ever think you're done getting better, it's time to leave the job. So, we as collectively, I wake up every day thinking about how to learn, grow, and develop and get better. I don't have it all figured out. I think anybody in any job that thinks they've got it perfected and, are done learning and are done growing, have to reconsider that. You have to be open-minded, you have to be humble and recognize you need to get better. Again, I would say that we've been good. This year was a bitter disappointment. This year was not good. But 4 of the past 5, the work's been good. Still needs to be better, but the work's been good.
And right there, I think, is where myself and the Blue Jays fan base and everybody listening and anybody who's aware of what's happening in Blue Jays land has the biggest disagreement with Mark Shapiro, because he says there that the last 4 of 5 years have been good. Things are good in that their process is chugging along, and they've seen some results in the regular season where they qualified for the playoffs and they got in, but they lost, but the process is all there. And that's where the hang up is with this Blue Jays management. They think they're doing something good despite all of the evidence being that this team hasn't won anything ever. And for me, I will never get past pro sports and baseball being a results-oriented business. They have their process. They have the people in place who build these lineups and do everything. And the results that the Blue Jays have churned out year after year after year is never being a serious contender. They've never gone on a deep playoff run. They never dominated a regular season and we're like, they got unlucky in like round 1 and, there's an excuse there. They've never done anything that I would say makes them like a top team because they haven't won anything. And that I will never get past that. Him calling this good, but not great. Where has the good been? I don't understand how you look at if you have Rodgers who's given you the money year in, year out. They're giving you $200+ million to play with. They want this team to be successful on the field so they can pay for all their renovations. And year after year after year, they can't win anything in the playoffs. And that's the bar. If this team was a rebuilding team, it would be okay. It would be good. But every single one of those 3 to 5 years, whatever window you keep talking about, Mark, the goal was a World Series, and you've never come close to it. You've never been anywhere even remotely in the same stratosphere of a World Series, and that's your goal. So you failed every single year. And I don't know how you try and sugarcoat that and you sit up there every year at the end of every single season and you try and couch your failures in some different light. That's it. That's it for the Blue Jays right now. We'll see what they do this offseason. There's a lot of work to be done. They need to rebuild the farm system. They did a good job at the trade deadline getting some pieces that'll help to rebuild to the farm system. They need to continue to do that this offseason. But this offseason is about next year and next year alone because this team better win. I don't know. I don't know what's next if we sit here next year and it's the same nonsense at the post regular season press conference. So a lot of work to be done. They need a couple bats at the top of the lineup. They need the middle seems okay. If Vlad's what he is continually, if Bo has a bounce back season, maybe he can lead the American League in hits again. Pitching, couple back of the rotation starters would be good. Relief pitching needs a complete overhaul. We'll see. There's a lot of work to be done. We don't need to go into all that now. We'll see what signings they make. I'll pop in with Blue Jay stuff every time there's new news about this team. Thank you for being here. It's been one awful ride this season, but yeah. That's it. That's it for me right now. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world if you chose listening or watching this right now, and I appreciate you for that. I'll be back tomorrow with little NHL stuff. I keep teasing this, but I will finally release it tomorrow. It is my picks for the awards and trophies. You'll get that on Thursday. And yeah, that's it. I'm upset. I'm upset at Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, and I'll never get over it until they win something. That is it for me tonight. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world who's chosen listening or watching this right now, and I appreciate you for that. Subscribe to the Jesse Blake Sports Report YouTube channel. That's it. Good night from Toronto.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.